Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide context in the war in Ukraine. If you're looking for Ukraine war news, I do these daily. Please consider subscribing. Okay, 1,130 Russians off the battlefield day over day. 7 tanks, 25 armored combat vehicles, 46 artillery systems, 59 vehicles and fuel tanks. I usually show you Andrew Perpetua's list. It wasn't out at the time where I first started assembling this, and so I can't show you that. But he said this, and I thought this was really interesting, and it's explanatory of why Russian casualties are at 600,000 right now. And it seems like there is a good rationale for why Ukrainians might be at a multiple less, like half of that or a third less or something along, whatever it is. Okay, Ukrainians take care of the wounded. Ukrainians help each other evacuate. Now he is looking at like every time a vehicle's hit or all the footage that's out there posted, he's evaluating it and tabulating. Russians 99 times out of 100 run away and leave the wounded to die. Think about that. Most of the time, Russian vehicles don't wait around to let in wounded before driving away. Those are really what I see in the footage. Okay, so if that's the case, then this makes sense, and it's not 600,000 Ukrainian casualties. Now, there's certainly hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian casualties. I don't know if it's 200 or 400, but I don't think it's 600. I'm sure it's not the million or so that the Russians would say, but this could be why. And again, he's reading all the or watching all the footage. Okay, other news in Ukraine. The Ukrainian Navy published a video of strikes on Russian facilities on the Kinburn Spit. It's reported that it's a warehouse of ammunition and fuel that has been destroyed. Kinburn Spit is over here on the edge of, like, so if I pan out a little bit, you'll see that this is part of Mykolaiv, and you have to go through Kherson in order to get there, but that's where they have put this, located this ammunition warehouse the Russians have, and it's no longer. Russian drone operator, his name is Silver, fragged his commanders by throwing a grenade into the bunker vent because of the executions, beatings, and extortions. Like you'd see, like, and I haven't shown this for YouTube's sake, but you'd see like Russian soldiers tied to a tree or like saran wrapped to a tree and beaten so because they wouldn't fight, that sort of thing. He made contact with the Russian Freedom Legion, was safely evacuated to Ukraine, and now will fight against Russian fascists. Okay, cope nets installed over the oil refinery in Slavyansk on Kuban, not far from the Kerch Bridge. So this oil refinery is expecting to be hit by drones. Like that's what they're now expecting. This is the new reality for Russia. Drones attacked at the Marinovka military airfield in Russian Volgograd region. A fire started there. Volgograd airport is closed due to the threat. This apparently was pretty big. I've seen a lot of footage here about this. It's still, this is Anton Gurashenko. The subtitles, the person that's recording this, are saying it's still bleeping flying. It's still bleeping around. They've completely destroyed it. The airfield is bleeped up. This is a serious tragedy, guys. This is very serious stuff. Okay, now what was at the airfield and where is it? So the airfield's over here. Okay, and what was on it? Well, here's the before image from 19 August 2024. So something could have changed in the last couple of days. It's only 3 days past, but loads of airframes on the flight line, 14 Su-24s, 15 Su-34s. I don't know what was hit or if any of those were hit. What I find more interesting are the 8 semi-trucks, 18 meters in length. What are they carrying? Ammunition resupply, Shaheeds, what? So yeah, so that's where it was hit. Okay, Ukraine's 3rd Assault Brigade says Ukraine goes on the offensive in Kharkiv Oblast. Remember, Kharkiv was a thing where the Russians were pouring over the border near Kharkiv and threatening the city. Well, now they're pushing back. And I have to think that some of the pushing back has to do with what's going on in the invasion in Kursk, although Putin seems very reluctant to be moving troops, especially from the Kursk axis, moving those troops, and rather he would have conscripts. backfilling in Kursk. Somewhere on the Kharkiv region, the first footage from the offensive is in full swing. More details to follow. Expect good news from the 3rd Assault Brigade. Well, it's tough fighting. It's not like, I mean, you can show all this footage as much as you want, but let's be honest. Bad things are still happening to Ukrainians simultaneously. Now, hopefully more bad things are happening to Russians who are in their territory and doing bad things to Ukrainians. But it's not like a one-sided thing. Okay, the village of Krasnokhodabrski, I don't know if I'm saying that right, has been taken under Ukrainian control. Russian forces cannot cross the river. So they've been pretty smart about cutting off the bridges on the river, and then now they've encircled, apparently, a number of Russian troops. It's getting worse and worse for Russia, but everyone continues lying to Putin, so it'll worsen even more. And that's just the nature of an authoritarian system. That's the kind of thing that happens in an authoritarian system. Okay, a BMP-3 crew from the Russian army mistakenly shot and destroyed their own BMP-2 vehicle during a battle. Okay, this happens sometimes in the fog of war, but that's what's going on in Kursk. Pilots destroyed 2 bridges crossing the Kursk region using guided aerial bombs. Okay, so what's happening here is really interesting, that they are trying to circumvent what happened with these, the bridges are blown, so they try to put out these pontoon boats, and the pontoons are getting destroyed. And the men that are massed around the pontoon bridges, they're hitting it with cluster munitions, so it's destroying the personnel as well as the pontoon boats, and it's pretty bad. Okay. More Russian POWs in Kursk. I'm not showing anything except for guys lying on the ground, and they're alive. So for YouTube censors, there's nobody in bad shape here. But again, I've shown like a dozen things of POWs, and every time, like, I haven't repeated this. There's like POWs after POWs after POWs. Here's a former Russian MP and acting Russian propagandist who is blaming the Russian command and Russian authorities for the failures of the second army in the world in the Kursk region. He compared Russian soldiers and command to chickens with tiny brains that are clucking in an enclosure and are being devoured by a fox. The fox is the armed forces of Ukraine. That's pretty fascinating to see that he's even willing to say that kind of thing. And it's just bizarre because at the same time, Putin doesn't want to reallocate the kinds of forces necessary because he really, really badly wants Pokrovsk. Okay, Kremlin abruptly changes course, issuing new directives instructing domestic propaganda outlets to prepare the Russian population for a new normal with Ukraine seizing Russian territories. This is according to the Kyiv Post. Wow. Like, they're like, remember, it's state-controlled media. They can say whatever narrative they want to say, but that they're saying that is pretty wild. Zelensky's meeting with Commander Sursky near the Russian border in Sumy confirms the buffer zone is actually having some effect. Quote, since the start of the Kursk operation, there has been less shelling and fewer civilian casualties in the Sumy region. Well, go figure. How about that? If you push the Russians back, they don't actually attack. Yeah, okay. Putin refuses to withdraw troops from Ukraine, sending poorly trained teenage conscripts to defend Kursk Oblast against Ukrainian invasion. Again, he wants Pokrovsk in Ukraine so badly that he's doing this sort of nonsense. And listen to this about what's going on with jail. Recruitment, this is Nexta. Recruitment of Russians in prison has reached a new level. They're sent to war even at the stage of arrest. So you're arrested. You haven't been sentenced yet. You're just arrested. Well, you can go to war and get this off your record. Okay, a human rights activist and the head of the organization of Russia Behind Bars told Nexta about new ways of obtaining cannon fodder for the war in Ukraine. Almost all prisoners in Russian prisons have been raided for the war. Recruitment continues, but it's actually been suspended due to a shortage of volunteers. Last year, a law was passed that allows people to be taken to war before trial during the investigation. How about that? Like, you're guilty until proven innocent, I guess. Or until proven guilty, I suppose. For example, if a person has been planted with drugs, he realizes that it will be difficult to get away with it, so he may choose the easiest option to go to war in exchange for closing a criminal case. Police officers in a particular region receive 10,000 rubles for each detainee who agrees to sign a contract with the Russian Ministry of Defense. Bonuses motivate them to put pressure on prisoners. That's crazy, but that's where they are. They know that they need to mobilize, and they're doing whatever it takes to mobilize without upsetting the overall population. Okay, Danish rapper Nicholas Hofgaard, who came to Russia because of his love for Putin and was tricked into going into war, terminated his contract with the Russian Defense Ministry through the court. The man's lawyer said that his client did not understand the terms of the contract because he didn't know Russian. Hofgaard served near Luhansk and complained that fellow soldiers forced him to drink vodka and called him a spy. He also was bullied by Nepalese mercenaries. Mercenaries from Nepal are there. And he's there, and he was forced to go to war. And remember we showed you this thing, what was it, 2 days ago, that Russia's flinging open its borders, and whoever wants to come to Russia because you want to be part of this traditional values that are Russia, come. And that's not going to go well for people, I think. Okay. Sergei Sumleny said this: "I have just realized I'm the first German ever who entered into Russia's sovereign territory with an invasion army and in harmony with international law." Now he does fundraisers and brings drones and things forward to the Ukrainian army, but that's an interesting point to think through. Putin now was informed that 115,000 people had been evacuated from the Kursk region. Now the math just doesn't work here. Earlier, the deputy governor of the region said 133,000 people had left 8 border districts, and they were saying 2 or 3 days into this, Russian propaganda. I showed this. I showed this on I'm not sure if it was Solioff or the other, but one of them was saying 120,000 displaced. How is it only 115,000 that Putin's being informed in the Kursk region? That just doesn't work. 2 weeks later, it's going to be less. That doesn't make sense. Here are inflatable decoys of F-16 fighters with Ukrainian symbols. Yeah, spend a missile on something like that. That would be a great idea. And then 56 years ago this week, it was 2-3 days ago, that's when Moscow invaded Czechoslovakia in, I think it was 68, to protect it from their freedom. They were like that then, they're like that now. And finally, today is Russia's Flag Day in Russia. Here are greetings from the Ukrainian army celebrating Flag Day in Russia. Well, there you go. All right, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.